Good afternoon. So what I'll do now is tell you the story of the two mermaids. I already, I just, it wasn't recorded, but I mean, about 2 nights ago, it was full moon, and so it was reminded me of this story. Even though the story is not, the full moon aspect is not incredibly important to the story, I would say, but it's related to the phenomenon of full moon in Earth, of course. And I will explain why. Actually, not in a very essential way. I would say indirect. I mean, in a way. But it reminded me of the story. So, but it wasn't recorded and uploaded to YouTube, and hopefully now it will be recorded, fine, and uploaded to YouTube, to the channel. I would say that this is a story that belongs to the colonization, I would say, colonization of Venus, I would say. Venus was never really colonized by the people of the Earth. But it was exploited and especially by the Zionists, starting in 20th century or by the end of 19th century, and there was kind of like a reverse colonization, in a way that, I mean, the state of Israel was created with all sort of like notions and things and behaviors that they actually took from things that happened, that they've seen in Venus, and this is true to some extent to this day. I mean, it's still true. So what I want to tell you, actually, I mean, some aspects of these stories, I mean, of this behavior is still true today, to this day, like in a literal way. Even though it should be said that not every element should be taken necessarily literally. I would just say straight from the beginning that this story can lend itself easily to metaphors or metaphorization, and I would probably even discuss some of the metaphors like explicitly myself after the stories. I tell you the story. I mean, there is there's obviously level of like metaphors here that, and part of it is, I mean, I'll speak about it like myself, like, I mean, explicitly. But of course, I mean, you can use any kind of metaphors yourself, and also you should remember that the story is essentially true in a little, but I mean, maybe not every aspect of it is true, like, or every, like, every detail is true, but in essence, it's true. I mean, these things happen and still happen. It's not a mythology. It's something like some people thought that, I mean, because I told you that I'm going to speak about the two mermaids story, that is kind of like a fairy tale from the past, like the Three Sisters fairy tale that I mentioned in this channel, or that it's something related to the mythology of Venus. So no, this is something that belongs to the 20th century and the 21st centuries, 20th and 21st centuries. So let's start. We will be interfered by the neighbors, both from within the apartment and the zombies outside, because that's what they are paid by the government to do, to move their mouths and tongues and to create enough noise to interfere with, I mean, whatever I want to say. But we will try not to notice the zombies as usual. So when the first Zionists, by the end of the 19th century or the beginning of the 20th century, started to move through the gates to Venus, they knew nothing about, like, they have no background, like, on what I'm going to see, because no information was kept. So it was a new world for them. And it took them some time to understand what they actually see, because, and one of the reasons is that they didn't, initially they didn't understand, they didn't know about the T originally. But very quickly it became the major, thing, like the major topic regarding Venusians, and it's still like that, unfortunately, to this day. And the exploitation is surrounding the T, and this is reality to this day, and they started this reality actually. These Ottoman, it was during the Ottoman, like the time that Palestine was ruled by the Ottomans, like the Ottoman empires. But the Ottomans didn't know nothing about. It was a broken empire, and they had no control over nothing. So these settlers, they were European Jews. Mostly all sorts of perverts that were kicked from their lands, and they arrived in Venus. And now it should be said that Venus is, if you don't know, so now you know, it's a water planet, like Earth. And it's actually covered with water even more than Earth. I don't remember what are the percentages, maybe 80, maybe 82, I don't know percent. In Earth it's something like 71, I don't remember exactly percent, but then Venus is somewhat smaller than Earth. Not much, but a little bit smaller than Earth. So the total land mass is considerably smaller than that of the Earth, but it's still big. Even if it's like 50 or 60% that of Earth, it's still quite a bit. Quite a bit of land. And not all places are they share the same kind of culture and I would say even technology. And now I have reasons. I'm not sure about what I want to say, but I have reasons to believe that the places in which the Israeli gates are leading to are actually a little more advanced than the others, because there are very good reasons to believe. I've never been there. Every knowledge that I have is from all sorts of sources, but I have very good reasons to believe that the Israeli places, Israeli places, the places in Venus that are near the gates, where from the Israeli gates are leading to, are more temperate. That they have a relatively nice weather, relatively cold, relatively warm weather. I wouldn't go as far as to kind of imagine tropical islands with bananas and coconut, but nicer than other places in Venus. And as a result of that, the culture in that places is a little bit less, more in average, more advanced than in other places. And this is actually important for the story, because this story describe a ritual or a ceremony that is certainly not customary everywhere in Venus, because it cannot be, because it requires a level of technology and logistics and politics, cooperation between people, that to my estimation is not common in Venus. What you're going to actually listen to now is, I would say, one of the pinnacles, or the heights of Venusian culture. Because, and it's something that is probably takes place in villages in Venus, where even the concept of village is quite advanced in Venus. Many people in Venus do not live even in villages. They live in something that is far less than a village actually. And what I'm going to tell you now takes place in villages. So even that in itself is just it tells you that these people are more advanced than the rest. But even, you hear the zombies, but even among the villages, not all, to my estimation, not all villages reach this, the kind of cultural level, that is high enough, to perform this ritual. Because it requires, again, technology and logistic and cooperation between people that, to my estimation, is only something that you can find among the, I would say, culturally, like the top villages in Venus, to my estimation. So certainly it's not widespread all over the planet. I mean, it cannot be. It's impossible. It's impossible from technology. I mean, from and it's not depends on like Israeli technology or Zionist technology or like early 20th century technology. It's something that they've done, like the first Zionists have seen with their own eyes. Like I mean, when they got there. So I mean, it represents the height of the Venusian culture, I would say. At least from some, I mean, arguably, but at least from some point of view. From some point of view. Now, because these people, the first Zionists, you know, the time of the people like Trumpeldor, these guys, like Ned Nilin, you know, they didn't know about the T. I mean, right from the start, they had no way to actually understand what they see with their own eyes. So, first, I mean, when they arrived on those, so I mean, they arrived they very quickly they actually found these very advanced villages, and they understood that this, I mean, it was that they have culture, and they've seen a ritual, and they thought that they immediately interpreted. I mean, the initial interpretation was immediately that what they watch in this village, what they watch is actually a religious ceremony. That was their immediate intuition, and you can understand why from the description. That I mean, immediately it might sound like something from that belongs to the realms of religion, and it was horrifying. I mean, they didn't understand it, but very quickly they understood. I mean, what's actually happening, and not only did they accepted it, they even imitated it, and they've done the same. And later, it was incorporated into the Israeli culture, and it's like that until this day, with several variations that we will discuss in a moment. So that is like what I call the reverse colonization. That I mean, the colonizer did not affect the culture like what they became, but they took part of it to their own culture in Israel, and it's like that to this day. Now, it should be said that I mean, as an introductory remark, I mean, to the description of what's actually happened is that I'm not sure at all that what I'm going to describe actually can be, I mean, defined as a religious ceremony. I don't think, I mean, it's very problematic because it mostly, I mean, this kind of like definition mostly relies on external, I mean, manifestation of what you actually see in your eyes. Like, I mean, on very shallow, I would say, I mean, aspects of the ritual. It's indeed a ritual, certainly. I mean, but I wouldn't say that it's a religious ritual. And I don't know if these people have any religion at all, even though I've said it in the past. I mean, that I'm pretty sure that, I mean, maybe I mean, before I'll actually speak about the ritual, maybe I'll just, I mean, add another introductory remark regarding religion, because I will say that, I mean, this ritual, it's difficult to say if it's part of religion or not. It's because the concept of religion is in itself something subjective. I mean, there is famously, I mean, this is a very, most famously, it's like this kind of like, I mean, philosophical debate is relevant when people discuss Buddhism, because, I mean, many people say, I don't have any opinion on the matter. I just present the discussion, like it's a discussion. Like, I mean, many people say that, I mean, that the identification of Buddhism as a religion is actually, you hear the zombies, הטרפים, הם לא מפסיקים לדבר, they will never shut their mouth. אלוהים נתן להם פה והם לא יפסיקו להניע את הפה והלשון, לא יפסיקו. הם ראו שמש באשקלון, שורפת את עזה, יש להם עכשיו אלפי חיילים עם כוויות קרינה, ועדיין הפה זז! איזה יצור שפל! So regarding Buddhism, many people say, I don't have any opinion on the matter, just, I present you the idea that many people say that Buddhism, as a religion, is actually, is not like a correct identification, it's like very Eurocentric, like, that people from Europe or European cultures, they knew about, like, Judaism, Islam, Christianity, so when they learned about Buddhism, they kind of like, they, first of all, they kind of like, like organized everything that they know about it, like under this kind of like, one umbrella term of Buddhism, which might be even in itself, problematic in a way that, kind of like, it tries to arrange different phenomena under one umbrella, but moreover, they actually, identified it as a religion, which is, many people say, I have no opinion on the matter, many people say it's very problematic. Just to say that, the concept of religion in itself might not be suitable to any kind of ritualistic behavior. But I don't want to get too much into it. Just to say that, regarding this specific ritual, my estimation is that it's actually not a religious, that it cannot be described. I would not describe it as a religious ceremony. Because it's, mainly, I would say because it's too functional. If it was less functional, maybe, we could discuss it as part of a religion. But because it's very functional, I would not say that it's a part of a religion. And also because I don't know of other aspects of presumably a religion that they have, and maybe they don't have any. So, I cannot, like, place this ritual as part of a larger corpus of knowledge regarding a religion that I don't even know of. And in itself, it cannot be like a basis of any kind of religion because it's so functional. And again, when the Zionists understood the functional aspect of this ceremony, they imitated, and they still do it to this day in Israel. To this day. So, things that are so functional, the trivial, explanation is to say that, it's just a behavior that they, like a technology, or, or technologistical kind of like behavior that they have learned with the time. Now, regarding religion in general, I would say that it's very interesting. At some point, I would say that at some point, I understood, this is kind of like, we are a little bit deviating, but in any case, I would say that, at some point I understood that, this is without relation to it's not directly related to the two mermaid story, just, like a short kind of like, detour regarding religion. At some point I understood that the Venusians in Israel, what I call Titans, not only in Israel, in Earth, Titans in Earth, some of them actually share the tendency that you can find among humans, which is to hate God, which means to actually believe in God. Because if you are an atheist, you don't believe in God. But no, they believe in God, but they hate God. And a little bit later, I also came to understand that this is probably something that they didn't only learn in Earth, but it was true actually to Venusians that arrived on Earth as adults and remember stuff, like they remember their life on Venus, and it was probably true to them as well, to some of them as well. Which means that this is something that is probably exists in Venus. That at least some of them, it might be true only to a small part of population. Again, it should be stated this is a planet, and even though mostly covered with water and landmass, I mean, and a little smaller than Earth, but still, I mean, even if it's like only 50 or 55% landmass of Earth, it's still a tremendous amount of land, and I mean, we cannot generalize about everybody. Maybe whatever I'm going to say is true. To say it's true only, like, to specific places that have specific, history, and it's not true to all others. But to my estimation, some of them actually have the concept of God, and not only have the concept of God, have the concept of hatred towards God. Which is, of course, I mean, it's both sad and also it's interesting. Like, I mean, it's interesting. In Earth culture, this phenomenon is, in Christianity, at least, it's well accepted, and also personally by me, I should say, but it's well accepted in Christianity to frame this phenomenon as part of the original sin. Not necessarily the way that the original sin is described in the book of Genesis, arguably so, but not necessarily so, but more so with the original sin in the versions that you can find in the Apocrypha, like in books that are not part of the Bible, according to almost any. Well, I mean, actually, this is not accurate, because I mean, you know that, I mean, what you call the Bible, I mean, different, like, people, it's a kind of like, I mean, it's a codex of, like, books, and different people, I mean, say that the Bible is different, like, codex. I mean, not only, I mean, famously, of course, the Jews do not accept nothing from the New Testament. Okay, of course, but there are other books that, I mean, that are in dispute, like, not among Jews, but among like Christians. Like, I mean, they not everybody accept the same books, like, to belong to the Bible, actually. And this includes actually books that probably in the past were accepted as part of the Bible by some Jews. Most famously, there is the example of Rabbi Akiva in Sefer Hanoch. But I mean, I don't want to get to it too much. Just saying that Sefer Hanoch is actually relevant to the story. But I mean, we can't diverge too much. I would just say that the story of Lucifer and most famously was dramatized by Milton, in the English literature, in Paradise Lost, is essential in Christianity, even though it does not appear in the Bible, at least not, I mean, in the Bible as accepted by most people. I mean, yes, some denomination might actually include in what they call the Bible actually apocryphal books that might contain references or even like complete descriptions of the Luciferian saga. So I mean, but most people to most people, I mean, it's apocrypha. But Christianity accepted. Like, I mean, all branches of Christianity. I mean, at least the famous one, even if they don't accept, even if they say that it's apocrypha, they still accept the story of Lucifer as I mean, part of like authoritative mythology and an alternative story of the original sin, in which Lucifer is an alternate version of Adam. This is not a new thing. I mean, I do not tell you anything new. This is like mainstream Christianity, like, I mean, since thousands of years ago. It's like, I mean, it's nothing new. I would just say that I accept it. Like, I mean, it should be said that I think that it's correct. Like, I mean, that indeed, I mean, the Luciferian, some people even arguably say that this is alluded to in the Old Testament. I mean, it's a stretch, with איך נפלת הלל בן שחר, maybe, or maybe some kind of like questionable verses in Job, maybe, like Sefer Eov, maybe. This is a stretch, perhaps. Like, if it exists in the Old Testament, I mean, it's like just, I mean, in פירורים, like פירורים בכמה נביאים. But yes, I mean, Christians, I mean, traditionally accept the Lucifer stories as an authority mythology and as an alternative version to the story. Alternative, not in a way that it comes, I mean, instead of it, but it's like kind of like a different way to tell the same story, the story of Adam, the first man, and the original sin. And I personally accept it, this kind of interpretation. And if you accept it, and it might give you some kind of like a clue into the notion of hatred toward God, like it's kind of rebellious, like I mean, a rebellion, like a rebellious, like I mean, behavior towards something. And some would say rebellious. You know, some, I mean, זה יותר מכמה פירורים בתנ"ך. זה לא, אני לא מדייק. יש בישעיהו אלה לכיסא צפון, וזה יש... It's a little bit more complicated. I mean, it's probably alluded to in the Bible, in the Old Testament, in more than just, I mean, scrambles. Like a more, like I mean, yes, it is alluded to in the Old Testament, but in very indirect way. I mean, not in like, and people, most people don't even know about it. Like even like Orthodox Jews. But so I'll repeat. I mean, I'll quote myself. It's indeed it's referenced in the Old Testament, but in kind of like a very hinted way. Like I mean, you cannot understand it if you don't have other sources. Like only when you have other sources, you kind of like you can understand. I mean, what did the prophets of the Old Testament speak about? Because they speak about it very in like clues, like in kind of like just they just touch the subject a bit and continue with other things. So if you accept this is kind of like a assaulting mythology, you understand that this is some essential part of the psychology of humans and maybe also essential part of the psychology of the Venusians. And that's why you can find like this hatred toward God like in their thought even before they actually arrived on Earth and met with the Terrans and their own ego complex and psychology issues. Having said all that, the ritual that I want to describe is, to my estimation, not something that I would say part of any Venusian religion, but initially it was accepted as such by the first like Ottoman Jews, like Ottoman Zionists. So now I'll tell you what they actually watched, like these first Ottoman Zionists, but let's do it in another video, so it will be like logically separated between the topics.